is that we need leadership that's gonna invest in people. I'm progressive and I believe when we call it the triple bottom line of people, planet, profit. People comes first for a reason. So if we invest in people, everything else will come along. And we haven't been investing in people. We've had leadership that has invested in their friends, they've invested in companies and corporations, and they've invested with people with money. But they haven't invested in the people of Baltimore. And so it's been far too long that we've seen that. And that includes our neighborhoods. Looking at the neighborhoods that have gotten investment, the only place that has seen any investment in Baltimore City for the last 4 decades has been anything that touched the water. And that's problematic. And there's been a lack of investment in our neighborhoods and the rest of the neighborhoods in Baltimore City and the people of those neighborhoods. We have to really put people first, whether you're talking about human services, whether you're talking about job creation, not just saying I'm going to create jobs, but understanding what are the jobs that are coming down the pipelines and what industries and how do we bring them here to Baltimore. And this is the work that I've been doing. This is the work that I'm going to continue to do whether or not I'm elected. And this is the work that we have to make sure that our elected leadership is doing, investing in people first.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Mr. Matt Clifton.
There was something that Senator Pugh said recently about the city being a business and should be run like this. If that's the case, then customers need a refund on their services. What? We shouldn't be getting just enough to keep us quiet. We're not animals. We're not animals, we're people. Without people, there's no government. There's no city. So you need to focus on taking care of the people. So you might have to start knocking things down from the top so things at the bottom can get better. So we all know who's at the top. We need to change our city government from the inside out.
Thank you, Mr. Clifton. Mr. McCray.
You're hearing from other candidates. From my perspective, I think he said it a little best. I can't top that right there. The city should not be run as a government. But from my take, I've been a human rights activist for a long time through an organization called United Workers. If anybody knows about United Workers, the work we're doing within the community, I'm trying to bring more permanently affordable housing, connected with unions to bring quality jobs. And that's the problem, that this for years our city ran by one party. They have control of all this money and they misusing it. When I first became a human rights activist, I used to be employed at the ESPN Zone restaurant. I don't know if anybody remember ESPN Zone. That's the highest grossing restaurant. The company was owned by Disney, and we had to fight Disney to get a good severance package. But they have control of the media, so the media talks us down and all that. I don't have the power and the money clout to, match some of these people, but Baltimore's a smaller city to get the message across. Because people is leaving and we're getting all these new transplants trying to change the culture of our city. Yes, we do need a human service, and we're not gonna have it if we continue with the same status quo and all that. But we've been pimped for years. Pimped, literally, on what's going on and all that. Even if the smaller candidates win, they're gonna answer to the people who gave them their funds. Just like anybody go to church, if you go to the big mega churches, the pastor listens to the members who give his tithes of office.
Thank you, Mr. McCray. Mr. Eggwood.
I'm going to answer directly to your question. I'm going to make it simple. This mayoral race is very important because it's one time we're going to change Baltimore totally. The question you asked is very simple. How are you going to get accountability for your service? 2 things are going to happen. If you demand service from the city, whatever answer they give you, they should be able to put it in writing. That way you can account for what service you got, what service you didn't get, and if you want to count out anytime, you have something in writing. Councilman raised a point about the water bill issue. When you get a water bill, when you get a ton-off notice for your water bill, when you get a tax sale notice for your water bill, it has no signature on it. How do you tolerate somebody sending you a piece of paper that's legal that can take you home with no accountability signature? When you go down there and you say, oh, the system set it up, that is fundamentally wrong. And the only people it's hurting is those inner city families that have lived in a house for 10, 15, 20, sometimes 50 and 60 years. You take somebody home for $150, we have to address that. Somebody has to sign their signature on it. I'll make that simple. And to correct something my dear friend here said about having an entertainment district in Baltimore, we do not have one. When I said arts and entertainment district, it means a strip where you can go to, there's restaurants, there's cafes, There's bars, a restaurant where you can host your art show, you can have a little band, you can show your own showcase on your own level. That's an art and entertainment district, not one where you can go have artscape once in a year. It doesn't have a community. In DC, I had a restaurant, small restaurant. It started with just me and my wife.
Time. Thank you, Mr. Agu. Mr. Williams, if you can repeat your question?
I want to know if homeless been going on all these years, what makes you think you're gonna get an office and stop? That's what I want to know.
We're starting with Mr. Agu this time?
Homelessness, all right? The only way we can tackle homelessness credibly is we have to first find out the cause. From my experience, I lived in my home right now for 2 years, no gas, no electric. And I was going through a job change at this point. I could not find a job, I was fighting the bank. We have to concentrate first and foremost, people who can help immediately is those people who can actually work. We need to get work to Baltimore. We have to get those people who can work back to work, because once you have money to work, now you can determine what you do with your life. When there's no job like there is right now in Baltimore, it's hard for us to even tackle homelessness on that simple level. So if we can do that by bringing jobs to Baltimore, we do one phase of it. When it comes to the part where people actually need help, be it that they're compromised, they cannot work, they have issues where they cannot be able to afford their bills, then we can do what's called affordable living. The city can reinvest. This will create jobs in the city. By the city reinvesting in this home we have right now in Baltimore, take ownership of this home, put them to full use, we can employ people to rebuild this home, and then we can actually subsidize homes for those people who cannot really afford those homes. Gentrification is coming to Baltimore City. I lived through gentrification in Washington, D.C. Before you know it's happened, then you're out. If you go to this city, what breaks my heart, you see neighborhood where people live for 50, 60 years, 3 or 4 generations later, they cannot even afford to live in a single room in a generation where their grandparents, their father and grandfather lived in. It's coming to Baltimore. We have to now take ownership of our city, make sure we make the point that people who have lived here for the longest are able to maintain the neighborhood they grew up
That's your
in.
time. Thank you, Mr. Agu. Mr. Emmanuel McCray.
To basically answer your question, we gotta do the math and all that. Baltimore City did a count of how many homeless people is in the city. Everybody says 10,000. We got over 58,000 vacant houses. The city owns 16,000 within it alone and all that. Some need to be fixed, some may not need to be fixed as much. We have the ability and the funds to put a lot of homeless people off the streets. And the problem is, people giving charity. We gotta get past doing charity work so I can get a pat on my back with my good old boy club or sister club out there and all saying we feeding you, giving you a place to stay. We gotta do more. The work Ms. Flowers doing and other organizations, that's just a start right there. But with the backing of having the city to back and take more people off and all that, the reason why we have homeless problem because the people at top, they don't care. And they doing a divide and conquer scheme and all that, homeowners versus renters versus homeless. So who's gonna be the bottom suffering the most? The homeless people and all that. And also on top of that, we got to help try to change the culture, even with renters, because we got a lot of people want to get real estate, make money off houses, and want to rent houses out. We got some of these slumlords that also continue the problem here in Baltimore. Everybody want to own a house and want to rent a house. You know what I'm saying? So this whole system needs to change. For system in place, even I'm working on.
Time.
Thank you, Mr. McCray. Next, we're gonna have Mr. Matt Clifton. Okay, William, if you could one more time.
I want to know, homeless been going on all these years, what makes you think you're gonna get an office and stop it?
90 seconds.
I used to be homeless. I know what that feels like. I used to sleep in basements and hallways and their rooftops. I know what that feels like. It's depressing. It sucks. And I promised myself a long time ago, if I was to ever get rich, I would get all the homeless people off the street if I could. Especially where I live. Because it's a problem. I go to work, I work at 200 of Holiday Street. Across the street, there's a guy named Rick. He's sitting out there every day. Mm-hmm. You know Rick. Mm-hmm. Shaking his cup, asking for change. In back of the Hollywood Diner, there are people that live under the underpass, the overpass for Route 83. It's sad. When you see a woman out there with her kids, 2 kids in a stroller, right across the street from Healthcare for the Homeless, you know what? I'm angry, because it doesn't make any sense. These people don't need to be out there. They really don't. The people at the top don't care, I care. I really do care. And that's one of the first things I want to tackle when I get in office. Get the homeless people off the street. There's no reason for them to be on the street. Whole bunch of vacant houses that can be rehabbed, these people can be put in them. Sell them a house for $1, or give them the house, or just say,
Time.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clifton. Mr. Harris, 90 seconds.
Homelessness is a huge problem that exists, but the first thing we have to do is, one, make sure that we're being fiscally responsible with the money. There's no reason that the city should get more money for funding for homelessness than the small nonprofit agencies, but yet the nonprofits are able to house more people than the city. There's no reason that should happen. That only comes because we're not using our money appropriately and effectively. 2, look at the continuum model of care and put housing first to make sure we're getting people in housing. And then 3, we have to make sure and understand that people are homeless for different reasons. We have to invest in providing wraparound services and identifying what are the triggers and what are the reasons that different people are homeless, to help see them through those processes, to help them get off the streets. And then lastly, of course, what I'm gonna do is we're gonna create jobs. He's right, we got 40,000 plus vacant houses in the city, which doesn't look like a problem, but an opportunity to put people to work and an opportunity to put people in houses. And we're not talking about low-paying wage jobs. We're gonna give them a skill that's gonna be talking about jobs that are gonna pay start off paying $40 an hour. We're also looking to bring industry to Baltimore City. Solar manufacturing, solar installation, so we can work towards reducing our carbon footprint. The rest of the country is moving in this direction, so why don't we get ahead of that and make sure we prepare the people here in Baltimore for those good-paying jobs that will exist for the next 30, 40 years at least. So investing again in people, in the services and the programs that provide those wraparound services to see them through the process.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Mr. Frank Logan.
Mr. Harris pointed out, because one is about money, but it really isn't about money. It's about how we utilize that money. HUD gives Baltimore and the state of Maryland millions of dollars every year for housing and development. And therefore, I was just down at the 83, helping those homeless the week before Christmas, handing out toiletries and stuff with one of the churches. So when you're doing faith-based, nonprofit, and non-governmental organization, you need to put that against with city government. Those housing funds that comes in need to be, there's an equity problem. It's not being distributed correctly. So that's where the problem lies. Those 16,000 houses they're trying to tear down, not all of those are condemned. Some of those could be rehabbed. We put people that are homeless with those wraparound services to help rehab those houses and be able to get them into those houses, become a homeowner or renter is an option. And I would like to see more community co-ops develop, set aside funds for community co-ops. Because once again, my whole plan is based on community. Every community is different, and every community knows what services they need to have right now. I don't know all of it. I know some of it as I go around the city. People telling me what, this is the mission down there on Carolina Street. They got both homeless and methadone users down there.
Thank
and
you.
separated.
Thank you, Mr. Logan. Councilman Stokes, 90 seconds.
All right, first, let me answer your question directly. No mayor is going to eliminate homelessness. My Savior said, the poor will be with you always. But then he told his apostles to take care of the poor. We're not going to eliminate it. I'm not going to lie about that. That would be a lie. It's been forever, and we all fall down. We all fall down. It should be a short time. That's where we are. We should make sure that folks have an opportunity to be able to earn a living that will sustain them and sustain their families. When we talk about the houses that can be reconstructed or renovated, then we should take men and women who have skills or limited skills, and we should teach them these skills so that they not only learn that skill for the moment, and when that house is finished, they have no more job, which means we keep them labor skills, but we teach them the other skills of carpentry, plumbing, and roofing, so that they can take that skill and earn a living for their lifetime. In other words, don't feed a fish, teach them to fish. And we use that model